All right, so 3, 2, 1. All right, got that time. All right, so first episode of BS Coast to Coast with Benny and Connor.
Mhm.
Mm,
How's the weather out on that side of the world?
hot, humid,
Hot,
disgusting.
humid. It was like 73 last night when I went to the grocery store. Not too bad over here.
That's gross. It's like 73 now, but it's just humid as hell.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not like that here, thank God.
Yeah, hate humidity.
I left that on the East Coast. Don't regret it.
Yeah, that's gross. So Benny
Mm-hmm.
is from Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Navy veteran, and that's where he got indoctrinated into the furry culture.
I don't appreciate you coming right out of the gate with that, but yes, you are correct.
And that's pretty much your whole personality now.
I don't. My whole personality. Do other stuff.
So tell us about your time in the Navy.
In the Navy. So I was a sonar tech in the Navy.
We're gonna hear that a lot.
I was on destroyers, smaller ships. The workhorse of the Navy, you know. They go everywhere. They do all the stuff. They do all the little stuff. They, patrol everywhere. I loved it. It's one of the best things I ever did in my life, and it taught me so much. But it didn't teach me hardly anything about being a real adult in the world. And
You just had to re-indoctrinate yourself into real life once you were done.
I felt like when I got out of the Navy, because I came from a small town in Kansas, so I didn't learn a lot about the world until I joined the Navy. So it was through jaded eyes of the U.S. military, and I got out of the Navy in San Diego, and it was like it's what I would imagine would be like getting done with college and then getting your first job and going out in the world. But it happened to me at 28, instead of 20, 21, 22. So it was it's a little interesting.
When did you go in and get out?
I went in August of 07, and then I got out in August of 16. 17, 10 years.
Was there anything huge that you feel like you missed during that time? Was there like any like major world events that you were just completely oblivious to?
The housing crisis happened in 08, and I didn't realize that was even a big thing until years later. It didn't even affect me. It didn't affect my friends. Didn't affect anything. And then,
What about like trends? Were there like any like trends or like any crazy online things that you had no idea were even a thing?
oh yeah, I didn't know.
Like you would have had to miss like
I never looked at Vine until like 2 or 3 years ago, when it was irrelevant now.
is Vine even still a thing? I thought they banished that to the shadow realm.
You can still find like Vine videos on YouTube and stuff, and they're fun to watch. But yeah, largely social media and trends. I really didn't keep up on. Fashion, I didn't keep up on. None of that. We were so institutionalized in the military. You live in your own little community.
You have missed so much. Like you missed like the big rise of YouTube and like the rise of just like people on YouTube, like Smosh and PewDiePie and Tobuscus, like all the YouTubers that were big in the early 2010s. Like you would just miss all of that.
I know of them, but I can't. No, I wasn't watching any of that. I wasn't really even paying attention to any of that.
Did you even have like how much access to the internet did you actually have?
I had all of it. I had a laptop. I had internet every day. Like we were so focused on what's happening in our world, in our little world, that I didn't pay much attention to the outside world. You know, all my friends were Navy people, and everything I did was for the Navy. So
Where were you stationed for most of it?
I did all my sea tour in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. So I was there. I was there from 2009 to 2013, and then I went to Whidbey Island, Washington, for 3 years, which was fun. It was weird.
So you're still mostly like on the mainland. You weren't.
No, I never went overseas. A couple guys did. If I would have stayed in, I would have gone to Japan, but I didn't realist. But no, I did East Coast, I did West Coast. I kind of did all the U.S. except Florida. But no one wants to go to Florida. Like,
Yeah.
we pulled in a port there for like a week one time, and that was enough. That was enough Florida for me for the rest of my life.
I went to Florida when I was 6, and I was at Disney World, which is like the most isolated place of Florida.
Oh yeah.
It's like you get the Florida, but you don't get the Florida.
You get enough of Florida.
You get the gist of it, but you're not ingratiated it into the right way.
Yeah.
So, but you also grew up in Kansas.
I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Kansas.
And I'm from New York, but not New York City. I am from upstate New York, which is a completely different world.
I've heard that.
It's not even like remotely comparable. And so like where I grew up wasn't like a terrible place in New York. Even though it was very small. But then for a few years I lived in like the actual boonies. Like I actually lived in a swamp.
Jesus.
So like what kind of people did you grow up with? Like who are the weird people in your town? Like I just wonder if it is comparable to mine.
So my town, and this is where a lot of people have a misconception, and you're probably the same. Well, people probably think this way about you too. Is like people associate like people where I'm from with like Southerners and like your stereotypical rednecks, and a lot of those people aren't. They're farmers, they're field workers, ranchers and stuff like that, and they're really homely and they're really down to earth. And
do you mean home? Do you mean homey?
Like they're not fancy
ugly.
or they're not. Oh no, they're not like homey. Pardon my English. I learned it in Kansas. They're very down to earth, right? They're very, everybody knows how to work on a car. Everybody knows how to cook. Everybody knows all these basic home things. And so the outliers were the people who had a lot of money, who were like, the people I live with now here in LA were like the outliers back home.
So where I live, well, both towns I lived in were college towns, but they were very, very different types of college towns. Like where I live now is like, it's a small college, a very small college. There's only one campus, and it's very small, but it's very wealthy too. Like it's a big like private school, so like I'm kind of used to like the people who are more on the wealthy side. But when I lived like really in the heart of central New York, like really in the boonies, that's where I got like all the different people. I was like, it wasn't even that far down the road. It was like a half hour away from where I live now. It was a completely different experience. And it's like you got kind of the same thing like you said, where it's like everyone's kind of down to earth. But everyone was also very crazy. Like half of the people would be what you would expect, like to be people from like the deep south.
I mean, yeah. They're just not as stereotypical in the way they act a lot, but the craziness I think is there. The one story I use for that is I came back in 2015 from my buddy's wedding. I was still in the Navy. I was his best man, and we had his wedding. I swear half the town was there, which was like not that many people, but we did his wedding, right? We had a blast. Everybody knew about it. And there was a party out in a field somewhere where we had a bonfire going, but then we thought that was weak, so we had two bonfires. And then we're like, well, we can make a triangle if we have three bonfires. So we had three bonfires out there, and it was really. But I mean, to us, that's normal. It's whatever. That's cool. But
Yeah.
you
I kind of like a different experience though. I think of the town too, because I also worked at a bar, so it's like you got like all like the drunks and the regulars in there. And like we had a lot of weird people and experiences that would come in. And so like I was like ingratiated in all of that. Like it was probably like only like a month or two of working there, and I already knew like all of the regulars and stuff, and knew their names, what they did, and I mean we got like it was a weird crowd. Like everybody knew everybody.
That's kind of cool. And you saw a side of people that I wouldn't have seen because I didn't work in a place like that, which is cool.
Yeah, a lot of that I wish I hadn't seen. There was a lot. Like I said, everyone knew everyone, so there was like all sorts of drama and stuff, and there were all sorts of weird characters we had roll through. Like we had the town drunk. We'll call him Wayne. And so Wayne was he always showed up really early, and he had a job as a janitor at the college. And the second work got out, he rode his bike over because he lost his license because of too many DWIs.
Hear that?
And so he rode over on his bike, and he would always get there early. And sometimes he would like go missing. Like he'd be there and then he'd leave without telling anyone, which is sometimes weird. Sometimes it was normal, but sometimes it was weird because usually he'd make like a big thing about how he's leaving, and then other times he'd slip out. But one time, he stayed kind of late, for him at least. Like he left around like 8, which isn't that late, but I mean, when you get there at 3 and you're been drinking the whole time, like he'd been there a while.
Right.
And he left and was gone for like an hour. And understand, like he didn't live far down the road. And he was gone for an hour, and then he came back and he was like, well, I had to come back because we were all confused. We were like, Wayne, what are you doing back here? We thought you left. And he's like, well, I had to come back because my mother locked me out of the house because I was drunk.
Oh my god.
And the whole time we were trying to piece together, where was he for that hour? He's like a 10-minute walk at most away from the bar, and he rode his bike, and then he came back. So we couldn't figure out where he had been for a whole hour between when he left, when his mother locked him out, and when he came back. And also, my favorite part is his mother locked him out of the house because he was drunk. So why was his first instinct to go back to the place that caused the reason he got locked out of the house.
You gotta stick to what you know.
And there was one time, this was one time that he stayed really late, pretty much the time the bar was closing, and I was usually still there around closing time because usually we'd finish up like an hour or two before and then just kind of hang out, have a few drinks after work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd usually help the bartender shut down. And he was there one night at closing time, and he went outside and put his little helmet on, got on his bike, and was all ready to go. And it was like the middle of the night. I mean, this was like 1, 2 in the morning. And he puts his sunglasses on. He's like, man, I can't see. It's so dark out. I can't see anything. We're like, Wayne, you're wearing your sunglasses. He's like, well, yeah, I have to do it so the sun's not on my eyes while I'm going home. I'm like, you just said how dark it was. So you really didn't have any people like that in Kansas?
It was strange because people who acted improperly, I guess you would say, kind of weren't friends with. It was like you had a friend. So my town had like 4,000 people in it, right? And you had a group of people that was the whole town. They were all friends with each other. And you had people who were just kind of on the fringes that you didn't interface with, right? So there were people like that in our town, but they weren't people that the general masses really talked to and stuff, and they were kind of loners. It was kind of strange. It was like I don't know. I like a lot of stuff about living in a small town like that, but some of it didn't.
Yeah, I guess I kind of was more.
And there wasn't like a big college or anything. There wasn't any of that. Like the biggest thing we had was industry. So we had a Gates Rubber Company, and we had a company that made transmissions for big rigs. We had a Russell Stover's candy factory, and that was 80% of the industry in my hometown. Like
What's the crazy thing with where I was is there was such a disconnect between the college and the town. And like I said, it wasn't like a very big college, but it was just there's like you never saw people from the college out in town unless it was like picking up food somewhere. So it's not like the college was a big part of the town. Where like in where I live now, where there is a college, like you see like students like out on the street, like going out, hanging out at local places. That wasn't the case where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of understand it though, because my college was mostly comprised of kids from the city.
Yeah.
And then they're just like placed into this town that has like one traffic light in the middle of the swamp. And also you're in like the heart of the country. So I mean like obviously like there's a lot of people in the town who are like, you know, for a lack of better words, have traditional values and like are a bit more racist sometimes.
We had that back home too. That was actually a big reason why I didn't go back home. It wasn't bad in Kansas, right? It's not bad in Kansas, but it's still there. Like the undertones is still there, and you're raised to be a Bible wielding Republican, especially in the Midwest, and it was kind of like not like being in the Navy opened my mind up a lot about things about the world, and it's not how I want to live my life. So, part of the reason why, the big reason why I'm not back home is because there's nothing to do in a county that has 16,000 people in it. And then another part of it is I don't agree with a lot of things that go on in that part of the world, that part of the U.S. So I'm out here in LA.
Yeah, I haven't. It was very weird because it was like two different cultures. Like I would go to college and like have this very different view of the world. Um, like like I said, it's like a lot of people from the city and a lot of more, I guess you could say, like progressive viewpoints and stuff like that. And then I'd go to work and it would be like the exact opposite. It's like very like traditional type people who have like views straight out of the 1960s. So it was just such a weird dichotomy to have.
Yeah. Yeah, once I left, I could never go back. I mean, I would go back and live there. Like, I would live in a small town. Maybe, I don't know. Not yet, but maybe. But I wouldn't want to live in that atmosphere, you know? I'd be just as content going maybe back up to Washington or something like that.
Hmm.
And living in a small town up there. But I know my aunt,
How
I was similar to mine. She lives like south of Tacoma. She lives near Mount Rainier up there. And she's never going back.
how much experience did you get like in other places that went in the Navy? Like you said
Uh,
you're in Virginia, but were you like did you like travel like
yeah.
around?
Well, so when I was in Virginia, so in the U.S., I'll do the U.S. first. When I was in Virginia, I went all the way up. Jersey's about as far as I got because Atlantic City's fun. It's not great. It's not a good place, but it's a lot of fun. And I've been down to Fort Lauderdale. Went to Fort Lauderdale for Fleet Week, which was a lot of fun. Um, so I saw a lot of the South, and I saw some of the Northern culture, and which is different from the Midwest because I mean it's wholly different regions, wholly different kind of people, wholly different traditions. Um, but I did go overseas. I went to England. I went to England. I went to France. Went to Dubai. Went to Bahrain. And I went to an island paradise called Seychelles. And I wasn't there very long for each one, but each one was a unique experience to see a little bit of the rest of the world and how people view us. Right? It was like in England, we got a good critique of how we were as people from a different group, you know.
Yeah, what do
And
they think of us?
they really like us. They all think we're cowboys, and we don't do anything to dissuade that. Right? We're all crazy Second Amendment supporting, getting drunk all the time. Like Americans getting drunk and like the English getting drunk, we both party real hard, but Americans get disruptive, and
We do it in different
The
ways.
English are just relaxed. Um, Same with
That's why in
France.
America we have bars and in England they have pubs.
Yeah, yeah, and they are very different. They both serve food and alcohol, but that's about where the similarities end. Because when we were in England, we went to London. I got pictures of it and stuff, but like we went and saw, the Tower of London, went and saw the River Thames and walked across it and stuff. But we went to a pub to get a beer after lunch, and you get your beer, and the door's open. You just walk outside and sit along the wall. They had a big stone wall across the street, and we were all just hanging out. Like everybody, like, oh, you Americans, that's so cool, I was on the Winston S. Churchill for my first ship, so you pull in England on a ship called Winston S. Churchill, you get treated like a celebrity. Um, but it it made me kind of embarrassed for the rowdiness that Americans just naturally kind of have. Because we can be polite, we can be professional, we can all this stuff, right? But ultimately, as a society, kind of rowdy, we're kind of rough. We work hard, we play even harder, and a lot of the world doesn't do that. Not publicly, at least. Not the way you see Americans.
How's that differ in the way that like somewhere like Dubai saw us?
Dubai, they all want to be us. It was strange. Dubai was really strange because you saw all the kids wearing like Jordans and like cargo shorts and jerseys and stuff, and like they were. All the older people were like they almost all wore suits or they all wore traditional dress, like traditional clothing. But the younger kids were all like you wanted to be us. Like they were like, "Oh, you're American. That's so cool." Asking us questions about it and stuff, right? And the older people were professional, polite. You know, like even more so than here. Like if you go into a store, like if you want to personalize, I bought a Kionskin rug, and the guy who sold it to me was really polite, but he had that, when you talk to somebody who's older and they think they're better than you, they could be or they could not, but they assume they are because they're older. And everyone that was older had that mentality. All of them. And they were all guys. You didn't talk to any women. That was also another weird thing. I didn't see a single woman running a store when we went to the big mall.
But wait, did you like see women around though?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But you didn't, like when you went to a shop, you didn't talk to a woman, you talked to a man. And that was very strange. We did go to the giant water park there, which was a little more progressive. They still had the burkas that were swimsuits, and they had face coverings and stuff, which was interesting to see. But everybody was a little more open when we went there. But it was still like it's just exposure to new culture, and it's how they are. It's not how we are, but you polite about it. You're respectful. You're in their country.
do they like have any like what opinions that they have about Americans?
They find Americans do a lot of things to excess. They do a lot of things more just more than anyone else, and they don't. Other cultures don't really like that as much, especially the Middle Eastern cultures. If you want to go get drunk, you have to go to a hotel. You can't be out. You can't be outside. If you like when you go out, you have to wear like we had to wear button-down shirts everywhere, except for the water park, because of how the culture was.
Like, even if you're just like going out to get like pick up food and
I wore polos everywhere, but even that was kind of. Everyone you saw was in slacks and a button-up, and it was like 90 degrees there, and they were still wearing these clothes, and I'm just like, I don't know, it just seems so overly professional. What we saw, because I remember we saw Dubai, which is probably different from the rest of the world, but like yeah, it was strange. It was a nice place. It was a lot of fun to go there, go see. I saw the world's tallest building. I saw the indoor ski park. Like I saw all that stuff, but it's a culture shock when you go over there and when you see things. You see people who don't like Americans. There were neighborhoods that were Syrian neighborhoods, and you could tell by the flags that were flying, and you just stayed out of them. It was just a different, experience. It was a very good experience. I'd say the one I liked the least was France, because the French do not like us. France was amazing. The French though were not.
They just like don't like outsiders.
Oh, they so you go up to someone in public and they're asking a question, and they're like, no, and they walk away. They're just so
Yeah,
they're just so mean.
that's always like a crazy thing to me is like a lot of people see America as being like a really bad place for like foreigners in terms of like trying to immigrate here and move here from somewhere else, but we're really not that different from the rest of the world when you really look at it, because I had a teacher whose daughter moved to Ireland, and like people just didn't want her there. Like they do not want people who aren't Irish in Ireland, and like ethnically they were Irish, like they had Irish ancestry, but like since they weren't born there, like they don't want other people there, so it's like extremely hard to move there if you want to.
Yeah, I've heard Japan is even worse. Japan's probably the worst because there's a
Yeah, I've
guy. I was in the Navy. He was the guy who he worked with me for a little while, but he ended up leaving the company on good terms. He just wanted to do something different. But he was half Japanese. His mom was Japanese. His dad was white, and he was a Navy brat. But he went to Japan, and you can tell he's not full Japanese, right? But they treated him just like any other outsider. They're like, yeah, he couldn't go anywhere. Like he can only go certain places and stuff. And they were so like insular. They were so against any kind of outsiders going to a lot of places over there.
yeah, and I've heard like they don't really think much of it. I heard a story
Mm-hmm.
about a guy who went to a bar in Japan and they wouldn't let him in because it was Japanese. Like you could only enter that bar if you were from Japan. If
Mm-hmm.
you're like just straight up Japanese, and they told him like there's a bar down the road where you can go where they accept foreigners, and he said like it turned into like a big thing, and like they called the cops on him, and like he said they just couldn't understand why it was an issue for him. Like they didn't understand why he wouldn't just go down to the other bar down the road instead.
Yeah.
So it's like just a very it, I don't want to say strange, but it's like very different than here. Like
Some of
there's
the
just
the European countries are like that a little bit, but not as bad. Not near as bad. Even
yeah,
France wasn't near as bad. I just didn't like the French people. They annoyed me, but they're fine. But yeah, a lot of countries, you go to a lot of these countries, they don't have a lot of foreigners. America is so diverse compared to a lot of these other countries.
yeah,
And
like everyone here is in some regard a foreigner,
yeah,
unless you're like
unless you're
100% Native American,
yeah.
which like isn't even really a thing anymore.
No, I
Like there's very
so
few
yeah.
like
True
completely
natives.
yeah, like there's kind of a misconception that here in New York we have a lot of them because we have like all the big casinos and stuff that are on nation territory,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really not like and there's also like the misconception that they're all really rich. Like
Yeah,
most
yeah.
most of like the tribe members and stuff live in trailer parks. Like it's a very few um native people who actually like are in the casino industry and rich because of it.
Yeah.
And um even then it's like very few of them are still like 100% Native American. Like it's just kind of eventually their cultures intertwined and the reservations opened up a little bit, so other people started coming in, and now it's just they're basically just other people who have like English blood or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's all basically the same now. So anyways, you have any topics you want to get into?
Hmm.
Anything rattling your brain right now?
I will say, I have a lot of this is something that I didn't really think about because I never really had a lot of younger friends before I met you and some of my other friends. Um, the generational difference. between older people. I'm talking 40s, 50s, like old 40s, and 30 and below, mid 30s and below, is so crazy. Because this might be a weird topic to bring up, but I was talking to my buddy about his son, and he's 49. I think he turns 50 next year, and his son's 22. And he's talking about some problems he's having with his son, and I'm like, none of these are problems. His son's just doing what he wants to do. It's like there's a there's a certain way that kids should act, and it's not true, and it's not correct.
Yeah,
But it's
there's not.
something I've seen it a lot more and more lately. Because I'm on. Before I was never on social media. I never followed a lot of stuff. But now that I'm branching out and exploring different things, I'm seeing a lot of these issues coming up, and it's getting worse and worse. But it's crazy how tone deaf some of the older generations are
Well,
to
it's kind of
us.
I'm kind of in a weird spot because even though there's like a 9-year difference between you and me, like
That
even
made me feel
still,
old, Roger that.
yeah, but even still, my brothers are older than you,
Yeah, that's
so it's
crazy.
so like a lot of the stuff that like you were into and like you watched as a kid, like I was exposed to. Like half the stuff I'm into today, like um I wouldn't have ever had any experience with if it weren't for my brothers.
Hmm.
Like I honestly I probably saw stuff that I shouldn't have at such a young age because of the huge age difference between my brothers and myself, but so I'm kind of in like a weird middle space where it's like I get that too, where it's like there's some things that are just different, but at the same time, like I have a lot more exposure to a lot of like a really good example is like Dragon Ball Z, which I loved as a kid, but none of my friends like even knew what it was because like by the time like I got into elementary school and stuff like that, Dragon Ball Z Kai hadn't come out yet, and it had pretty much run its course on Cartoon Network. So it's like as in this weird middle space where it's like nobody knew what it was, but I, like had the episodes on DVDs from my brother and like played all the games, so it was like a huge part of my childhood.
Hmm.
But it's something that I had in common with none of my friends.
Yeah, I got that in the Navy quite a bit too, because I was kind of young when I had gone in 2007, 2008. A lot of older people were going in because of the housing market crash, right? Um,
How old can you be? Isn't the cutoff 26 to enlist?
20. No,
Is it
I thought it was 32, and then if you get a
maybe
waiver,
the
you can increase it. Because we had a guy in our division who was like 34, and he had to get a
maybe it is.
special waiver.
Maybe it's getting drafted as
Uh,
26.
I think it is. I think that sounds right. And I
Okay.
think going to officer candidate school might be in your mid 20s, somewhere in there.
Mm.
You want their officers to be in the Navy for a long time. Well,
There's also got to be different things too, though, like depending on what job you take, right?
yeah, I mean, you're not gonna be, unless you're that weird hyper fit guy, you're not gonna be uh, any kind of special warfare, any kind of like
I mean,
probably won't even be infantry, as an older guy.
if you
Um,
just wanted to be the guy who like comes in and like delivers mail to people, I don't think they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're you're too old for that.
how is
What
it?
are you
You
doing
see
here?
those
Get
guys?
out of here!"
those are the guys who get waivers, though, right? Like your admin guys, your technicians, your always a technician in the Navy, which means I wore coveralls and was covered in grease more than I ever handled a gun, right? Like I don't get me wrong, I used greaser weapons. I shot the 50 calibers, I shot the 25 millimeters. You know, I qualified on every weapon, but we're not soldiers, we're sailors, and there's a lot of leeway in what you can get and what you can get away with in that. You know, you don't have to be as physically active. You have to be smart. So their standards for what they look for are a little bit different. What they allow is a little bit different. You know, the Marines are a whole nother story, right? Because you get like a 30-year-old guy who's kind of out of shape. They're going to say no because they don't have time to put you in shape, and you're just going to be a liability, and they're going to waste money on you. So it varies a little bit, but there's a lot of leeway,
So
you know.
so in your like sector or whatever, like they had the older people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they're just avoiding the housing crisis.
I think so, but I didn't know about that until, like I said, years later. So I never thought to ask people. I never thought anything of it. It was just, you know, I get to my first ship. I'm 19, and I think I turned 20. I turned 20. I was 20, and I outrank half the people there, and they're all in their mid 20s, and I'm like the young kid, you know, learning this stuff, doing this stuff, and it was just it was very strange, and it's kind of not normal for the military, but at that time it was normal. But that also taught me a lot of lessons because when I came in, a lot of my leaders were older, so a lot of values and a lot of things I learned were from older people, and those were the people I hung out with, you know. So that was also coming back to it, right? You were talking about missing, you know, world events, missing cultural events, and things like that. I used to hang out with older guys who didn't have, you know, who didn't watch Vine, who didn't watch YouTube, um, and that was a byproduct of the Navy. So when I got out and I got friends that were civilians and they were younger and they're like making all these references to pop culture, I'm like, I don't know what any of that is, and they're like looking at me like I got two heads, you know?
Marvel Cinematic Universe, what's that?
Yeah. Well, I know movies and stuff, but not to the point, not to the extent of like I learned so much more. Navy taught me a lot of values that I still keep today. But as far as the rest of the world, I learned way more in the 5 years I've been out, 6 years almost that I've been out. So I think both experiences were good. Both times helped me build the character that I am today, the person I am today.
But then, like, still a lot of that you feel like you were talking about your friend who's like going on 50 and just says, even still with that experience, has like completely different values.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. It's strange sometimes. But I don't know. I always wonder. One of the big things I contemplate was like, I learned. What if I only did 6 years in the military? Right, my first enlistment was 6 years. I did another four. What if I only did that 6 years? What would it have been different? And I don't know. I kind of go back to that every now and then. So I would have been getting out of the Navy in Virginia. I'd have been 24. You know, just I don't know. I don't know. I never regret anything about the Navy, but I always wonder what would have happened otherwise.
You were still in the Navy during the huge timeline split where Harambe died.
I remember Harambe. Um,
That's where the timeline split. That's why the world is the way it is today.
Yeah.
There's a timeline where Harambe survived and they're living in a paradise.
I know. That's the way
everything is literally just because Harambe. That is why the world is the way it is.
It seems like so much changed after that. Like that was a weirdly apocalyptic event. Yeah.
There is a universe out there where that gorilla is still in that cage pounding his chest, and the world is perfect.
I think that was about the time when I really started like looking at the news and looking at pop culture too, because I don't know, it was like an event that affected us all. It's strange.
It was such a
Yeah.
weird time. And speaking of weird, to move on to another topic, so do you remember like 3, 4 weeks ago, roughly about a month ago, there was the woman on the plane who like got up and started causing a huge ruckus and pointing her finger at another passenger, like that motherfucker,
Yeah.
he's not real. He he is not real, and this plane is gonna crash, and it's all gonna go down.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember looking at that.
Yes, so we got some new footage of it too. Um of her not arrest, but them escorting her out of the airport.
Hmm.
And it appears from that that she was most likely drunk. Like she hit a few
Little mini
too many of
bottles.
those little bottles that they give you at the airport, and then hopped on, and uh that was probably the reason for her outburst. But in addition to that, she also came forward and released an apology video,
Very good.
which is like this has been a weird year for apology videos. It's like every week there's a new apology video.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
this
that's what.
this one was not done with a ukulele, unfortunately.
Missed opportunities.
But she came forward, she apologized, but she clarified basically nothing. So like there's still just a lot of speculation on what the freak out exactly was about and what she was talking about when she said the guy wasn't real.
Hmm.
Because basically all she said was like, I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry if I frightened anyone on the plane, and I'm really embarrassed that I acted in the way that I did. And that's basically it.
I don't know.
But there was did how far into that rabbit hole did you go?
I didn't put a lot of stock into it because to me it always seems like every so often nowadays people are like something strange happens and it turns out to be nothing. So I kind of get desensitized to it a little bit.
See, my
Um,
brother and I like followed this. Like we went deep into it, and there were just so many dumb takes on it, because there were a bunch of people saying like she was onto something. She found one of the reptilian robots on the plane, and she was warning everyone that they were gonna crash the plane. And like the running theory on X, formerly known as Twitter, was that it was a reptilian and or robot planted there by the government to see if anyone would notice that they put one on the plane, and this woman just so happened to have noticed.
I don't know. You hear a lot. You hear a lot of stuff.
I feel like Twitter and TikTok have become like this just cesspool of stupid conspiracy theories,
Oh
like
yeah.
more so than ever. Like there's certain conspiracy theories that like I can understand, like 9/11 or the Kennedy assassination or the Titanic being an insurance scam. Like I don't believe them, but I can see why somebody might think that.
There are there
But
are
then
there are
other
things that add up that
ones
might make sense. Yeah.
are just so brain dead. Like it doesn't make sense why this would even be a thing. Like, did you see the TikTok giant one?
The giant.
Yeah, so there was a guy who captured a video of a giant on a mountain, allegedly.
Yeah.
Like he was driving down the road and he took a video of what looks like a giant person walking across the mountain. And it was just nothing. It was what he actually captured was a tower. And just kind of the way that like he was moving down the road and like how you're looking at the tower, it looked almost as if it was a person walking. But so many people were like so dead set on the fact that he actually saw a giant, and he came forward and said that he hadn't. Like he was like, yeah, it was just like a stupid video. But he also kind of played into it because the way he did it, he made it look like he was reading a script and like very under duress. So then people were like, the government captured him, made him film this video. You can see him reading the script and they're pointing a gun at him, making him read this.
Mm-hmm.
And then people went even further because he just like stopped posting because that was it. And they were like, that's the proof. The proof is in the pudding. They killed him. He's gone off of social media. He's vanished. There's no more of him here. And they use that as like proof that the government killed him for what he found. And when the information came forward that it was like a tower, like someone went on Google Earth to the spot that he supposedly captured the giant
Mm-hmm.
and showed like it's a tower, people were like, well, the government obviously built the tower there so that they could say that's what it was the entire time. That tower wasn't there before. It's brand new. The government built it to cover the whole thing up.
I mean, here's my thing with that is the government has the power to do a lot of stuff, right? And there's a lot of stuff they will cover up. But like, there's so many far fetched little things that just don't seem like they just don't fit in the budget. Is the biggest thing for me.
There's
Um,
another thing that always gets me too is something that a lot of conspiracy theories miss is why.
yeah,
Like, there's a conspiracy theory that the Challenger explosion was not real and that all of the people are still alive and like there are people who look kind of similar with similar names out there in society. But like, why?
what does it? What does it give us? What does it give? What does it
Yeah,
give
like
the businesses and like it
yeah,
screwed over
what do you
NASA?
gain?
It messed up Lockheed, right? Like, yeah,
Like if anything, it just makes it you look worse because you had a shuttle that exploded. Why would you want people to think that was the case? That's what like a lot of these conspiracy theories lack is the why. Like what's the incentive to do it? Like you have like yeah, you have these like little parts that you can connect, but what's the point of all of it?
yeah. There's and that's the question. People always like, oh, it's got to be a bigger play. Oh, there's got to be something going on. It's like, what could be going on though? Like, really? It's like, does the government have the power to make somebody disappear? Yes. Have they done it before? Yes. But like,
Do
are
they
they
have a
doing it?
reason to do it?
Yeah.
No.
Some guy ran spouting off. I saw this, I saw that. Who cares, right? Like with the way news is, only half the people in the world are going to believe him, if that. Um, there's better resources to be spent, right? Spying on Russia, North Korea, driving around the world. Like, there's better things for them to spend their money on than monitoring Americans who are arguably like easy to monitor because we have Facebook, put everything on social media and on the internet. Like you don't have to even try.
That's always something like even bigger too. Like just like so many random theories. Like let's say like the giant was real. Like this guy did capture a giant moving across the mountain. What reason would the government have for covering that up and executing the guy because he saw it?
Yeah, the government, especially, right?
Yeah,
Like
like
they come out of their ivory tower and they come down and they smite this guy.
Yeah, they have no stake in it. Like, what
Yeah.
does that change about our world if there's a giant walking across a mountain? But on the same note, have you been keeping up with the alien stuff that's been coming out the past couple of weeks?
No, I've seen it. I've seen the articles. I've seen the admission of the Air Force, but I haven't actually read any of them.
I haven't either, and it's so out of character for me. I'm usually on top of everything like aliens and space, but I have not looked into this much.
Well, you always ask yourself when you think about that, right? Like, the universe is a vast place. There's got to be somebody else out there. There can't not be anybody. Like,
It's
you
a
just can't.
question of if technology is possible to like get here from somewhere
Well,
else in the universe.
think about this. Humankind has had fire, has had the ability to make technological things for hundreds of years. But there's a lot of things that push back against that, right? Gunpowder's an example, right? They thought gunpowder was magic and the work of the devil, and it was prosecuted for years and years and years. Or, different forms of metallurgy that were like, oh, well, this can't be correct, so we're just not going to do anything with it for hundreds of years. So there's a lot of religious and social controls that kept technology from advancing. Like, think about where it would be if the 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 Dark Ages never happened and the Renaissance continued and just never stopped. You know, so I'm like, we had a hard time of it. So there's got to be somebody else.
Did you ever have like any experience in the Navy that like confirmed?
No, we stayed up too late. I stayed up too late last night playing Baldur's Gate. No, we did. I've heard of underwater things though. Underwater creatures that can't be explained, underwater noises. Um, but no, as far as anything above the water. But I mean, like I said, there's got to be somebody out there. There can't
Mo-
there can't
a
not be
lot of
somebody out
the
there.
like experiences that I've heard from the military come from the Navy. Like,
Yeah. Well, we're the furthest out. We project our power. We project our force so far out, right? Air Force is all stationed in the U.S. Marines and Army don't look up. Navy's got all the sensors to look around and see things. Personally, I
and
haven't
I
seen
guess a
anything.
lot of it's kind of also um, goes deeper into the accessibility of there's like aircraft carriers. So like if you do catch something kind of crazy out there, you can just send a plane out and be like, "What's that?" And you find something that you can't really explain.
Yeah, we had destroyers, or we had healers on the destroyers, but they weren't going anywhere fast.
Yeah,
But
but essentially what I've gathered from it is this guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he said that he pretty much said like, yeah, aliens exist and we have not exactly made contact, but we've seen them.
yeah, I mean,
Like we've seen things from other planets
I,
here.
I can believe it. I mean, there's got to be stuff out there.
I've always been a skeptic with a lot of that kind of stuff. Because there's also that one guy. The heck was his name? That really famous alien abduction. I'm trying to find his name. But he got like abducted in like the 70s, I think. Or maybe the 80s, and it was like this huge thing, and people still use it as like the poster child for like alien abductions, and say that's like the biggest proof ever. And I am so skeptical of it all the time. Like, I'm like, okay, so this guy went out on a freaking drug bender in the desert for a week, and because he doesn't remember any of that, you think that there's no possible explanation other than aliens. But I'm trying to find the guy's name, and I can't figure out what it was. But anyways, what else do we got? So, do you remember back during COVID, we had the Island Boys?
Island Boy.
Yeah, and just they became the internet's punching bag for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you know they're back?
No. I thought they left. I thought,
Yeah, they're back, and in the like weirdest, creepiest way ever. They have made an OnlyFans account.
That's wild.
And are like actually doing shit with each other.
No, that's enough for me.
And they're like, it's not like just normal, like they're actually brothers. Like, it's not like a facade that they put on. They're actual fraternal brothers.
It's crazy.
And are now like doing incest porn essentially on OnlyFans.
People that desperate.
Well, I mean, the Island Boys like just live off of clout. Like, that's all they have. Like, they will do anything.
Yeah.
At all for clout. Like, they take the thought of like no such thing as bad publicity too far. Which, I mean, a lot of people do nowadays.
Right.
Because they had that one, like they had like that TikTok person who was like faking abuse from her boyfriend and like destroyed her boyfriend's life, and she was just like, yeah, that didn't happen. I just want people to pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
But where are some other ones? We've had a lot of weird clout chasers over the years, and it feels like it's all picked up like since COVID.
Yeah. COVID was a big deal. COVID was like the rise of YouTubers. And I don't mean like they came out, but like the rise of like the little indie groups and stuff like that. So a lot of people were stuck indoors, and there wasn't a lot to do, and a lot of people. But there's also like how I said society's changing a little bit. The younger generation's changing a little bit. People don't want to meet other people, so they sit behind avatars and do it, which is I mean, fine, that's expressing yourself, but that's
I feel
part
like
of
it's
that change.
like I don't mean to be like some old man and like
Back in
blame
my day,
uh blame like TikTok for all the world's problems, but I feel like TikTok is like a bit of the root of the problem because I feel like prior to COVID, TikTok was like the big punching bag of the internet. Like people were
yeah,
like, oh, this is like this huge cringe platform and I don't want any sort of association with it. But then people were stuck at home with nothing better to do and just home all day. A lot of
yeah,
people couldn't work from home, so it's like you were literally just stuck there. So people started going on TikTok just to see like what it had to offer. Like they had nothing else to do all day.
yeah,
So it's like from there, like so many people found a platform and then they started doing like the stupid prank videos like staying at Target all night after closing. And the most confusing thing to me is like who who watches half this stuff and like finds it entertaining? Like I literally don't understand. Like I understand like sometimes there's like children who find dumb shit entertaining or will sometimes go on to like a video on TikTok or a live stream or something and then just kind of not do anything, like just kind of linger there. But who the heck are the people who watch this stuff and actually find it like actually entertaining?
I don't know. Well, people like all kinds of different things. It's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. You can go down. There's a lot of depths to different things, right? Like I'm a big supporter of the furry community, right? But I'm not a fursuit guy. Like that's not something I would do, you know. Um,
Like the NPC streams, for example, where you like gift them actual money and then they just like emote for you. Like, what's the appeal in that?
People are bored.
Bored enough to watch someone say the same three things for 2 hours?
People don't have hobbies. They don't have a lot of stuff going on, or they're stuck at home, you know. And it's like people try to find entertainment and just about everything.
Yeah, but there's so much oversaturation of just content out there now. Like,
Yeah,
there's so many YouTubers. There's like so much other shit on TikTok, even that's fun to watch. I mean, there's a new show dropping on some streaming service like every week. Like,
yeah.
how is that like what you sit there and want to watch? It's just so baffling to me that some people uh like sit down and find that as like actual quality entertainment.
Mhm. They do.
And it's just such a weird it's a weird genre. Like I respect the people who do it in a way. Like I would do it.
Mm.
Because like you get so much money for just saying they're saying like the same three things. But where's the entertainment in just like watching that?
You got me, man. People are weird.
But anyways, we've
Anyways,
gone on for
a little over an hour.
yeah, a little over an hour, so I think that's a good place to wrap up. Any last words you want to get out there, Benny?
Nah, just everybody keep an open mind about everything. That's what the world needs right now. And a lot of the boomers and the older generation. I guess I'm technically a boomer, but like a lot of the older generations aren't keeping an open mind about things, and they want things to stay the same. But the world's not the same as it was. and we're going to see that more and more going forward. Is people of our generation start to do things, and start to get power, and start to do stuff. Things will change.
It's always been that way though.
Yeah.
And the more progressive people always win. Like newspaper used to be seen as a horrible invention.
Yeah.
Look where we are now. But that seems like a good place to wrap up.
All right.
We will do this again soon and have a good episode 2 of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Say goodbye, Benny.
See you guys.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.